shit up. Oh, boy. Hey, what's up? What's happening? Good evening. Someone I have to tell you, I'll have to make this. I never mentioned my banana ice cream I make. This is it right here. I don't know if you can see it. Hey, you know, people always ask you how you doing. You're supposed to say great or good. It's one of those days when I was kind of felt off all day. So that's the truth. But I would say that I'm motoring through despite not feeling my greatest. As one must do, right? Hello. Hey, Mildred. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I always appreciate people coming to spend some time with me, especially those of you who live way the hell over in the Middle East or Asia. I mean, I don't know about you guys or gals. I would never get. I mean, listen, I don't care if the person walked on water. I wouldn't get up at 4 a.m. to watch anybody on TikTok. So that's not me. But for those of you who do, good for you. More power to you. I have gotten up early for like a flight before, but sometimes you have to get that certain flight and it only leaves for like the price at like some crazy hour. Otherwise it's like $500 more and you're like, damn. And you can't spend $500 more to get like 3 hours sleep. So you do it and then you hate yourself for having done it. Anyway. Yeah, there's some conjecture about that. I don't want to say for sure because it hasn't been publicly announced, but someone was asking me whether there are U.S. forces that are inside of Gaza. Probably. They may not be uniform U.S. soldiers, I'm not sure. But there were U.S. soldiers on the ground outside of Gaza. I knew that from the first few weeks of the conflict. But I don't have any special information about the details. I mean, I can Google it like anybody else, but I don't want to say something I'm not sure about. Oh, wow. It says your Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday lives are 4 a.m. where you are, M? Oh, my goodness. Oh, yeah. No worries at all. No, I don't blame you for not being... Like I said, I wouldn't be there if I were you. But I think Maz is also... you all see Maz in here once in a while. She's from the UK. So, like right now, for her, it's 1 a.m. And then she still comes to these a lot. I don't know how she does it. But maybe she can sleep in or something. I hope so. Sorry, I made those little... I don't know if I ever told you, I make this... It's called Nice Cream with an N. And instead of it being like regular ice cream, you make it with frozen bananas. You put it in a high-speed blender, and you add in whatever fruit you like. And it's actually really good for you. I mean, way better than ice cream. It doesn't taste... Nothing tastes like ice cream, let's face it. But it's not that much different, and it's way less calories, and it actually tastes pretty good. Good day from Australia. What time is it there, Davis? Let me see. I can probably look it up. So, Australia time. It's GMT plus, or no, what is it? GMT plus what? Plus 11. So I'm GMT minus 5, so 16 hours apart then, right? So that's 8 hours from 24, so it's got to be about 12 noon there, right? I would think. 6 day in Australia. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe I got it wrong. Oh, that's right. You guys are ahead of us. That's right. So yeah, 16 puts us at 24, which is 12. Yeah, 5 minutes off. That was close. I was only off by 6 hours. But no, it's nice to see everybody come in. Thanks for being here. So, what some people have been asking me to talk about things like 9/11. I don't know if that interests anybody. I mean, I thought at the time when I was curious about it, I did a deep dive, right? Like everything else, I was just so curious about it. And I read a really good book by an author who's now deceased named Michael Rupert. And he was also in the peak oil movement. I don't know if you know what peak oil is, but somebody says, do I read your comment? Kitty, oh no, maybe I missed it. Sorry. Let me see if I can find it. Wasn't trying to ignore you. I'm going back. There we go. What I learned is that there are Indian. Yeah, there are a lot of Indian soldiers that are, yeah, inside there for sure. I heard about that. For those who don't know, Israel's a very close ally, or India. Prime Minister Modi is tight with Benjamin Netanyahu, of all people. Somebody said they tried cashew milk and salted caramel. Yeah, I mean, the salted caramel sounds good. That's such a great flavor, right? But what I do, hey, Nader, what's up? Yeah, Nader, we have to catch up for this weekend. I'm assuming you're going, right? Because you said you were local. So for those of you who don't know, I'm sure most people here know, but there's a march for Gaza this weekend on Saturday in Washington, D.C., and it's at 1 p.m. at what they call the National Mall, where all the monuments and museums are down in D.C. It's going to be big, I think. You know, it was the last one was from what I didn't go to the last one. I wanted to, but I got sick. But yeah, a lot of people are going to be there. In fact, just so you all know, Nate or you too, if you want to check it out this way. I don't know if I gave you my email, but if you go to my Linktree, I created a group on Telegram because people said they wanted to catch up. So there's a group there in the middle of my list of stuff on my Linktree, and it says January 13th protest. Pretty simple. So if you want to link up with anybody, I have actually somebody's coming in from out of town. I offered my place and somebody took me up on it. So there's somebody flying in on Friday night and picking them up at the airport, and then we'll be there on Saturday, and then they're going to go home the next day. So that's the deal there. So yeah, that'll be cool. And it's going to be a lot of people. You know, do me a favor, call me by my name, please, Sammy, which is not what you said. I know you're probably not trying to be mean, but that is not something I like to be called. Excuse me. Yeah, I have this, just to show you all, this is chocolate cherry, but it's just like this banana-based, it makes it kind of like the same consistency as, if you put it in the freezer, after you mix it, it'll harden up more like ice cream. But it's not bad. And you know, it's enjoyable. Oh, it's okay, Sammy. I'm not crushed by it. Just want to make sure you're aware. But if it's if you like dessert, like ice cream type of desserts, but you don't want to pack on the calories, which I do a lot. I love ice cream, but I mostly eat a vegan diet, not perfectly, but mostly. And so ice cream for me, I don't, you know, maybe once a year I might get it out if I'm no other options. A lot of places you go to now have vegan ice cream or sorbet or something like that, which is cool. Somebody says, am I going to watch the court trial tomorrow? No, I'm not going to watch the court trial. My assumption is going in is that there's going to be a conviction. I think that's pretty likely given the intent expressed by the leaders as well as the evidence on the ground, right? Pretty simple. But no, I don't watch UN resolution hearings. I don't watch court cases. I mean, if they had teeth, I would. But, and it may be that this tilts the balance of pressure they get to put on Israel and the United States, but I kind of doubt it. Somebody says, much respect, I was guilty of that myself, and I'm sorry for that. What, as far as eating ice cream? I mean, listen, let's face it, ice cream is damn good, right? And there's few things that taste better than ice cream. But it's, yeah, and I don't know, somebody's asking what channel the hearings will be on. I would imagine it's going to be on things like C-SPAN or something like that, if you know what that is. Can you tell the name of lecture at Weizd College? No, I don't know what that is. Sorry. Yeah, it's too bad. Hey, Devo, it's too bad that we don't have an international agency that had like supremacy. Like, you know, it should be fair, right? So if the majority of the world community says, hey, this is wrong, there should be some sort of accountability, right? But that's not the system we live in, right? Unfortunately. So I've seen some videos of people recently. I don't know if you've seen these, but here on TikTok, and people are just like, you know what? I've so awoken after the 7th, like, in just understanding like how frustrating it is that the government's not doing anything. In fact, that they're backing up the thing, and they're just like, they've had it, right? And that's the key term. They've had it, and they just are just done, right? They realize that the two-party system, like we've been talking about, is kind of a joke. It's like a myth, and they realize that the people that are in politics don't really serve them. Some people still think if you can vote in different people. You know, I see these lives about Donald Trump and Joe Biden. They're seeing a lot of them now that, you know, we're in 2024. And I just want to, I wish I could just grab them and say, hey, you're arguing about the wrong stuff, right? You're arguing about the wrong stuff. Yeah, some people call it the uniparty, or two different uniforms, or two wings of the same bird, or However you want to say it, it's the same idea. But we've talked about that, the power structure. By the way, has anybody heard of Dr. Shiva for president? Some people have mentioned his name on here. I've been following him loosely for quite some time. But he's an MIT guy. He worked on some of the programming related to some of the email structures. He says he invented it. I don't know exactly about that, but somebody says you should try Canadian ice cream. It's from called Cow's Ice Cream Most. Yeah, well, that's what it's from, right? It's actually calf's milk. Yeah, if you don't know who Dr. Shiva is, it's just spelled Shiva, Dr. Shiva. And his whole shtick is that he's the true outsider, right? He makes fun of people like Trump and, of course, Biden and even Bobby Kennedy. And he talks about other people being like establishment gatekeepers like Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, that they're not even the real people, even though they seem like they're kind of outsiders. I would argue, though, having watched Tucker Carlson, I think he legitimately has made some changes outside. I mean, of course, he's still a hugely highly paid person, right? You don't make that kind of money and have full independence, let's face it, right? And I think he got $100 million from Elon Musk or something like that. It's crazy. But, Tucker's weird, though. He's kind of a weird guy, and I don't know exactly. I mean, there are times when he says stuff, I'm like, yeah. And there's times when he says stuff, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? So I have a weird kind of mixed feeling about Tucker Carlson. And everybody's that way, right? No one agrees with everything you say. Hey, do me a favor, everybody. If you don't mind, tap on my forehead, get the likes up, tap, 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 tap. I hate asking people to do that, but we only have, I never understand this. Listen, people say how much they like this show, but I only get like 120 people. And some shows like Eric, which I'm glad Eric's doing well, have like 500 or 600. And I'm like, damn. Now, here's what's happening with me, though, I think. I used to draw consistently 350 to 500 people every single live. And now it's gone down below 200. So I think what's happening is, and maybe this is just me being sour, but I think that the broadcast of my lives is getting, the reach has been drawn down. Same thing with my videos. I was getting 20, 30, 50, 100,000 views on most of my videos for a while. And now I'm down below 5, 6, 7,000 or whatever, So what Eric suggested I do, and maybe this is the way to do it, but he said put out like a half dozen or a dozen videos that are just, plain Jane, like just talk about the wall or the sun or whatever. Somebody says, why isn't Quinn going live with you? That's a good question. Quinn's his own man, right? He's down there doing what he's doing. He doesn't have any allegiance to me. I'd love to do it because it's fun to do and I like his company and I enjoy what he has to say and I'd like to hear more. But you never know. I mean, he's got other stuff going on. I'm sure there's other people pulling him in. You know how it goes. I mean, just the way life works. Sometimes you meet bigger people with bigger audiences and sometimes you go live with them. I understand. There's no hurt feelings here. But if he does contact me and says he wants to do it, I'd welcome him on here for sure. But yeah, I think that's what's going on. Who knows? But it just seems unlikely that after all the time I've spent building up a big audience, now that my followership is much bigger, that I'd have much smaller lives, right? It just doesn't seem quite right. But yeah, if you could please tap on my head, that might at least get a few more people in here, because I think what happens is that broadcasting of the algorithm that kind of makes it blink, that increases as people are tapping on the like button. So I see people doing it, so thank you very much for doing it. I will tell you this is exciting. I mean, every little step is a step in the right direction. I did some trading the last couple of days, very little bits, but it worked out pretty well. So it's always nice when you have some success at something you're working hard at. But if I told you the amount, you'd be like, it's so funny when people like me get paid for these lives. I've mentioned this a lot of times, and I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you how funny it is. You'll get a notice afterwards that says transaction, notification. You'll say, congratulations, you earned 14 cents. I don't even know why they do it because it seems pretty silly. But I'm gonna have to print these out. Oh, by the way, something else happened today that was insane. And I don't know where you all live, what your living situation is, but every once in a while, something crazy happens where you live and you're like, damn. So there'd been several instances. I live in a multi-story building with other tenants, and some people put their stuff down their sink, like they dispose all, but they put a lot of food down there, right? You're not supposed to do that, even if you grind it up. So, hey, Abir, nice to see you here. Oh, Abir, I saw Abir on a live today, and she was great. Anyway, another story. So a couple times while I've lived here for about maybe 8 months, some of the stuff has come back up the bathroom, like the vanity in the bathroom where, you brush your teeth at night or whatever. And so it was just like some food waste. It was nasty, but it wasn't like horrible. But today, the unthinkable happened. I mean, this is like something out of a bad movie. So I was in bed early, and I hear this like what sounded like a small explosion, like kaboom, and like in my bathroom. I'm not kidding you. This massive like well, it looked like black oil, came flying out of the sink and went all over the bathroom and was like an inch or two thick on the floor, like this huge puddle that spilled out into the bedroom. And I was like, what the hell? And so I was totally shocked by this. It's like, what a way to get up in the morning, right? I couldn't even go in the bathroom. So of course, I contacted the emergency number at the place where I live, and I said, "You're not going to believe this." I took a video of it as well as a couple pictures, and I said, "Yeah, it's hummus." Somebody, yeah, that's funny. I thought maybe I discovered oil. This is great. This is my new ticket. I'm great. But it was basically like sludge that from all the years of these people putting their stuff down the drain. It's all the oil and grease. I think it's from a lot of people eat like bacon or whatever. And if you don't know, if you cook bacon, you get this little grease and it's still hot. You pour that down the drain enough times and it just clogs up your drain because it hardens down there. It was this black, sludgy, it didn't smell like sewage, thank God. But it was everything but that. It was pretty disgusting, right? Something out of a bad movie. So that was my day. So they came out and cleaned it, thank goodness. But then they had these plumbing crews coming in, and they have these little things that they snake down there. And these guys were just cussing at the top of their lungs. And these are professional plumbers that have been doing it for like 30 years. And I could hear them like they were really pissed. And eventually I walked back there and I said, "Hey, you guys seem pretty frustrated. What's going on back here?" And they go, "Oh, this is not good, man." He goes, "We've brought this thing down there 3 or 4 times. They had it on the electric mode. All it's doing is poking little holes in this big grease pit." And they said, "We're going to have to take the whole pipe system out of the building." So I guess the lesson is don't dump your bacon grease down the drain, right? So yeah, it's pretty gross. So, I mean, I've owned rental properties before. Hey, Ella Bakers, thanks for the support. I'm hanging in there. You know, it's weird. I've told you all before, I've been pretty straightforward. I go through mood undulations, and I'll tell you, today I hit like a valley. Like sometimes you're operating at your peak. Today was not my peak operation. So for most of the time, it lasts maybe several hours, right? It's not something that goes on forever, which is this crazy thing about our minds is that when you're not in a good state of mind, you don't think it's going to change. Like, of course, it makes no sense rationally. Like we know that our moods change like the weather, but nothing ever stays the same, good or bad. But when you're in a little rut, sometimes you just want to get out of it right away, right? You don't want to be patient and let it pass. So anyway, so I had a little bit of that going on today, unfortunately. So I need to do some more exercise, but because my body hurts, anyway, you don't need to hear the whole story. It's been a tougher period because I used to exercise like 6 days a week and pretty rigorously. So now I have to make myself do it. Most people make themselves exercise, right? You have to go to the gym. I never had to make myself. I love going. It was like fun, and I just enjoy exercise. But lately, not so much. Brian wants to talk about South Africa. I mean, it's really, we know what the petition is to the court, right? We're pretty much aware of what the different charges are and the different things in the document. If you're not, you can Google it. You can look it up. And really, it comes down to just, what's going to happen next. Yeah, I take vitamin D. Anita, thanks for the suggestion. Or user, or whomever said that. Yeah, I mean, Sal, listen, it's really good. I walk pretty rigorously because I walk the dog once a day or twice a day usually. So today it was really cold and windy, so I took the car down to the dog park. But normally I'll walk down there like a mile down, a mile back, which is good. And part of it's a big hill. Hills are always good to walk, right? So, I mean, I'm still functional. I just can't do the really hardcore stuff. I used to do boot camps and really heavy weightlifting, and I love doing that stuff. I used to run with a medicine ball on my shoulder, all that crazy military stuff. But now I have to eat more carefully because otherwise I'm gain weight. So maybe it's because I ate a bunch of shit. I ate a bunch of cookies in the last 7-8 days, which I feel terrible. I feel gross. So maybe it's just my normal reaction to gaining weight, which I hate doing, by the way. It drives me crazy. I feel bad about myself when I gain weight. Anyway, I'm sure the last thing you all want to hear about is my personal toils and troubles. Thank God forced me. Yeah, listen, getting some movement is really important. I think till the day you die. Yeah, I feel so badly for these people that are like bedridden with different kinds of disabilities, or maybe they're really heavy, like to the point where they can't move that much. That's got to be horrible, right? I think one of the biggest curses, I told a friend of mine this one time, I said, I will be really upset if I can't do any exercise someday. That's like my worst fear. But I guess you deal with it, okay? Anyway, so what I really want to do, if anybody wants to, I had some really interesting conversations in the last couple of days with people who are pro-Zionist. Now, as I've said before, Sometimes people who are pro-Zionists are just rude as hell. They're arrogant. They're mean-spirited. They talk over you. They interrupt constantly. I mean, that's not the kind of conversation I want to have. But if there is anybody on here, usually there aren't, unfortunately, but if there is anybody on here who's pro-Israel or pro-Zionist, I'd love to have a conversation with you, and not so that I can dominate you or talk over you or make you feel, bad. But it's just interesting for me to have those conversations because it's good to change ideas over. And yeah, somebody was asking about the tunnels in New York City. So if those of you who haven't heard, there was a community of Jewish rabbis in a Brooklyn neighborhood where they found tunnels, and they were found out, and they were trying to close them up. And the conjecture, they arrested maybe a half dozen or a dozen rabbis. And while they were arresting them, there was a bunch of other people that were what do they call them, synagogue attendees or whatever, like constituents, I don't know, congregation, for lack of a better term. They were trying to stop the police from arresting them. It was really a weird scene, right? So, well, I think that somebody says you're too calm and rational, and I don't know if I'm too wise for them, but I think I try to take an approach that's more polite and more considerate, is a good way to put it, more considerate of the other person's situation. Sometimes it's hard to listen to somebody when they're putting out a bunch of, wrong facts or things that are factually incorrect. And I have in the past, probably a little too soon, stopped people or muted them and try to correct it. But it's kind of better to let somebody talk, as long as they don't go too far and too long, because you want to be able to address some of the points there. Would any of the Arab countries done anything to stop what's happening without getting in a war? That's the thing. Any of the quote unquote Arab nations like Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Iraq, Yemen, and the Houthis are doing something by firing things. They can't wholesale invade, but they've been slowing down ships. But obviously, think about it this way. I mean, if you're Egypt, obviously they have their own problems, they have their own concerns. They have sort of a peace agreement with Israel to some extent, so they don't want to mess that up because they worked hard to establish that. The Sinai could be contested again. They could lose that. And then, of course, you have Jordan, and you have to wonder about the Jordanian leadership in and of itself, much like people talk about the Palestinian Authority, same kind of situation, right? Kind of play both sides, and the people, I'm sure the people, I've heard this, the people in Egypt desperately want their government to do something. They're ready to go. They're like, sign me up. I'll go in right now. Let's take them on. But the government doesn't want to do it. And probably the same thing in Jordan, I would imagine. There's probably Palestinians in both Egypt and Jordan that want to go and do something, right? That's what I would think. And, the more I keep hearing these same old stories, the people who are Arab who live in Israel have great lives. They're perfectly happy. They have perfect equality under the law. And I'm thinking to myself, have you never talked to somebody who's Arab Israeli? I mean, maybe one or two people. I know one or two people who are black in my country who do pretty well. They've kind of risen up the economic scale. That's not normal, right? Most people who are in my country, people who are living in lower income neighborhoods who are African American, they're supposed to have equal rights under the law, but the way it actually plays out in the real world is no way. And they don't have equal access to property, money, jobs, advancement, education, especially the schools in some of these, hey Sheila, the schools in some of these districts are just reprehensibly bad. They don't even have heat in the wintertime. They don't have the right textbooks. They don't have all the right means. Teachers have, it's just a mess. And if you go out to the county, the surrounding suburbs where all the white people live, and all the schools are amazing. And the reason that is, if you don't know this, is the way that schools are funded, for the most part, is by the local tax receipts. It's called an ad valorem tax. And so if your community doesn't have a lot of money or a lot of wealth, there's less money to spend on the schools. And it's kind of like this unfair catch-22. So you're in a poor neighborhood. There's no way to make more money and your school system sucks. So how are you supposed to break out of that, right? You can't. That's the point, right? And I think that's the point of being, quote unquote, equal under the law in Israel, but you don't really, there's all sorts of rules and practices as well as laws that are not equal. Let's face it, right? So if you're somebody here who wants to come up, I would love to have somebody to talk to tonight because I'm, I usually have pretty good gas in my tank, but I'd say today I probably have the least I've had since I've been doing this. I always keep forgetting to say this, by the way, and so I want to tell everybody tonight. If you come on here and you have to leave midway or whatever your situation is, someone said they were, it's late. I think M said that. But if you have to go, no problem. But I'm now recording and downloading and then putting back up on my YouTube and my Rumble channels each episode as I do them. So if you want to check it out, you may or may not have known that. So if you want to see them, they're being uploaded in their entirety. And I'm slowly but surely going back through the lives from most recent to further back and trying to take out pieces that are issue specific. So like if we do talk about 9/11 tonight, it doesn't include the chat because when they're recorded at TikTok, it doesn't record the chat. I'd have to do a screen recording on my phone, which takes up, tons of room on my phone. I could do it. It would just, it's more than my systems can handle on my end. So it'd be nice to have the chat, but it's not that necessary. I usually call out the questions, right? And only if somebody's saying some really reckless stuff and there's this chat battle going on is it fun to watch. Not Nadal, I'm hanging in there. I would say, today wasn't my greatest of days. I just was not in the highest of spirits. But, when you're not feeling your best, and what I try to think of is this. I don't know how you handle it, but I try to think of people that have it way, way worse, right? So I always say two things. I've been in war. That sucks. When you're deployed, you don't have any of the stuff you have here. And also, I've been in jail 3 times. So if you've never been in jail and you've never been in a war, thank your lucky stars, because both suck. And so it's always a good day. But even so, sometimes you have a hard time getting your wheels spinning and you're just not quite yourself. And today was kind of like one of those days for me. When did I go to jail? 3 times. Once in 2012, once in 2018, and once recently. There was an old warrant from the 2018 situation for a different municipality that got served. And I was actually driving Uber. And I was driving these people to dinner. Luckily, they weren't very far from the drop-off point. I got pulled over for a traffic violation by being in the bus lane, which is, bullshit. I was only in there for a couple seconds, but that's the way they make their money. They pull you over. And then, of course, when the cop pulled me over, I told the guys in the back, this will only take a second. I don't have anything going on. Of course, that thing popped up, and I ended up getting arrested. And they took me out and put me in the squad car, and they sent the other 3 guys had to walk the last quarter mile to the restaurant. I felt terrible for them. And earlier that night, I had agreed to take somebody else next morning to the airport really early in the morning, and I had to cancel that. So it was a mess, and I was only in there for 24 hours. It was, it's funny. I drove back past the building. There's this big building in my town where you drive past on the road every time you're going places. And you always look over at it and go, I'm so glad I'm never going to be in that place. Then, of course, like a week after I said that, I find myself in the damn place. I'm like, this has got to be a bad dream. And if you've never been in the first 24 hours in a jail, it's the worst part of it. You're like in some holding room. It's dirty. It's nasty. There's no food. There's nothing, no beds. Just you're sitting on concrete for like a whole day. It sucks. And a lot of times you're on the floor because there's like 7 people in a really small room. So it's not the place to be, right? So the other 2 times were once in 2018, like I said, in a different place than that, and then 2012. They were both related to the, it rhymes with Shmira Shmana. I can't say it or they'll put an age restriction on the live. But, just petty stuff, not that big a deal, but enough that it was against the law. So I'm not as you can probably tell, I'm not some hardened criminal. Although because I was involved in anything, my family's very by the book, right? And so they think I'm like this cartel member. It's so funny. But that's not a reason why they don't know. Between that and my political views, they just, I'm kind of an outcast, unfortunately. So, yeah, that's the amazing thing is now most states in the United States, you can do things like that as just like you go down to the liquor store, which is all legal here, you can buy, in fact, I think that's more dangerous because you can really do some harm to yourself with those things if you get too much of it and you consume it. But, with that other stuff, it's kind of like it kind of affects you for a short period of time, but you can't you can overdo it, but not to the point where you go out and do a lot of damage or hurt somebody usually, right? I mean, ask any police officer, do you want to arrest somebody who's under the influence of alcohol or something different? And then they're going to say, they'll take the different 7 days a week because people aren't as belligerent, right? When people get drunk, they just they behave in ways they never would behave. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on the markets because it looks like we're failing at the top here. I'm just trying to watch the S&P. If you don't know, it was sold off a little bit. Now it's bouncing back up and retesting the highs it sold off from. So anyway, yeah, these are interesting experiences to have, right? So I think sometimes the worst experiences are actually good because it teaches you to appreciate the things that are good, right? It's easy to take things for granted and all that stuff. There was somebody in the box here, but they dropped while I was still talking about my misdeeds in the past. But seriously, if anybody wants to come up and share part of your life history or something that you've done, you don't have to tell the whole story, but it's just, I think we've all been through stuff of some extent or the other, right? It's nothing wrong with telling people the truth, right? Because none of us are perfect. What do you think about Bitcoin exchange? Well, if you don't know or not, so this is something that's happening right now if you don't know much about how the markets work, we know about stocks, right? You have stocks like IBM and Apple and stuff like that. And then we've heard of bonds, you get a payment every 6 months if you buy a treasury bond or a treasury bill. There's different things that trade like stocks, and they're called exchange traded funds, ETFs for short. And there's all sorts of different ones. Some are just like the Dow or the S&P 500, where they represent the same movement of the broader market. And others are specific to commodities like wheat or corn or whatever. And then some are representing other financial instruments. There's one that just got launched for Bitcoin. I think that's what the person was asking, what I think of the Bitcoin fund. So now that there's an exchange traded fund, more money will come in because it's harder to set up a direct Bitcoin account. You have to get what's called a wallet, and you have to have it on a separate exchange. So the accessibility of that, it's a pain in the ass to set up. There's some security issues. You have to have your wallet protected. You have to have a key off-site. It's all this technical mumbo jumbo. I won't bore you with it, but it's more challenging for the average person to do it. The barrier to entry is more arduous and pain in the ass. With this, the same entry of money into the Bitcoin market is going through a much easier access point through most people's brokerage accounts. So therefore, it will support or increase the price of Bitcoin, likely initially with this surge of money from this easier price point. Now, once that money comes in and pushes Bitcoin up for a bit, and that kind of slows down, we'll see what happens. But that's why, by the way the markets work is, markets move up in anticipation of things happening later. So a lot of times the move is over when the money actually comes in, and then it starts to go off because people are taking their profits. They call that buy the rumor, sell the news, right? I've heard of that before. So, and by the way, if anybody wants to hear about that stuff, I could do 20 different lives about how trading and investing works. There's a lot to it. Although the simpler you keep it, the better you do, right? And I always like to say I know a lot about it, but my ability to do it successfully is still in its early. It takes a while to get good at it because, the biggest problem is us, right? When it comes to emotion, that's why computers do a pretty good job of it because you can program. But the problem with computers is they can't analyze as many variables. And so the variables, confluence of variables and sort of a knack for it over time, having that 10, 15 years of just watching things and kind of knowing what fits together and what feels like. Computers don't have feel. And after a while, as a trader, you develop feel. And it's hard to describe because you just kind of know when something's more likely to happen because you've felt it before. And other times, when you don't have that feeling, you just kind of sit back and let it go. And computers can't develop that. So all the best algorithms in the world will never outcompete the best human trader because just no intuition. But there's a lot to it, but there's a lot of different ways to trade and make money. You can, like most people buy and hold stocks their whole life. That's one way it's investing. Trading is usually going in and out in more frequency than long-term buy and hold to some extent. So, yeah, the hardest part is overcoming your emotions. Like they say, trading exposes all your flaws. And it's so true. Like if you have any fear of losing money, it'll expose you there. If you're too cocky and can't take a loss, that exposes you. If you have trouble focusing and concentrating, that gets you. That gets me a lot. Some people do really well with it, that pick it up really quickly. But you have to be able to put aside your normal emotions and just allow the system that you're working with just to play itself out and not get jittery, so to speak. And it's very easy to get jittery when it comes to your money, right? Because it's real money. So the best way to do it when you're first learning is just start with less. Why are my upper eyelids pulled back? I have no idea what that means. I don't even know if that's germane to anything. I could say, why is your chin half an inch lower than mine? I don't know. What's the difference there? Anyway, somebody's asked me, how tall are you? Are you single? I'm just a guy talking on the internet here, right? Yeah, somebody's talked about, I'm sure M's talking about the International Court of Justice, that even though they can't enforce it, it would be good in terms of having that conviction on the record, right? It's like a stain against your honor, so to speak, even though it's not going to be that Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know what that. I mean, maybe I'm falling asleep and I can't notice it. I'm actually not that tired tonight, which is cool. There's nothing worse than being on a live when you're listening to somebody and you're kind of starting to do that. That's really, it's very inconsiderate to somebody, right? Which I don't want to be inconsiderate to anybody, but sometimes you're just tired. And I hate to say it, I'll drink coffee if I have to because I don't want to be a jerk. And then I'll be up until 3 in the morning, which is no fun. Anyway, I'm glad you're favored. Thank you. You know what would help me, and I don't know what's happening with this whole reach thing, but if you all have people in your friends group right now that are not watching, if you could send them a message saying, hey, this dude's online, come check it out, because I think they're limiting my reach, and that's probably the only way I'll be able to get more people in. Not that having a ton of people in is the most important thing. I mean, like I said, it doesn't affect how I get paid, but whatever information I do have to share, I'd like to be able to reach more people if at all possible, right? And it's interesting because I have a lot more followers than a lot of the people. I see a lot of people's lives, and you just take a look at how many people are on there. So some people have these lives. I saw somebody today that had 4,000 people watching their live. 4,000 people. I was like, damn. And I looked up their followership, 12,000 people. So that out of 12,000 followers, they had a third of their followers, or I guess most of them were watching them followers. And versus me, for example, I have 107, whatever it is, thousand followers, and here we have about 115 people. So I don't know if it's the reach or if my subject matter only appeals to a certain number of people on these lives or whatever it is. Yeah, I don't know if you saw this. Somebody just mentioned the Ecuadorian unrest. This is crazy. So a prisoner from one of the gangs in Ecuador escaped. And then he started to lead a rebellion against the government by going into a police station and holding police officers hostage. And unfortunately, they unalived one of the hostages. I saw the video of that. But I think they were taken over, and I think they scattered. So there's a whole effort right now, kind of like an all points bulletin from the government. We're going to go after these people, and pretty much no rules, just go get them. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm sure we'll be hearing some updates. But yeah, this happens a lot in South American countries and Central American countries, right? There's a lot more of that going on where the governments aren't as firmly entrenched. Like the U.S., they don't play, right? I mean, look what happened on January the 6th. I mean, it's very difficult to go in and do something in a rebellious fashion here and win from using force, right? There may be ways of overcoming stuff peacefully, which I think is the way to go anyway. But the chance of it happening forcefully is very small because there's just so much federal and police power and stuff like that, and military power, right? But you can check that out. If you Google Ecuador and then rebellion or whatever, you'll find that stuff out. Yeah, that's the sad part. People bitch about immigration from the right. A lot of times like, these damn immigrants, right? Why are we taking all these? The U.S., if you don't know, our 3-letter agencies go in and destabilize a lot of these countries. They take a leader who's solid, who's keeping shit together, and they basically put somebody in or overturn that group or destabilize it so that somebody bad comes in that will allow the corporations to do what they want to do, but it's not good for the civilians. And then they start to divide. It's turmoil, like we saw in Libya. Libya is the great perfect poster child example. You depose the leader. The leader was a strong man, was keeping control of things, and then you take off that cap on the lid, you got a big barrel of monkeys jumping out, right? And that's what happened in Libya. It's just a complete disaster still to this day. So, Sweet Libre from Hotel, I'm not sure what that says. Oh, it says Sister Libre. Is that Sister Libre or Sweet Libre on here? So it's usually, I think it's Sister Libre. Spoke to Bisan earlier, and she really wants us to make sure P culture isn't lost. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, that's a good point for her to bring up, but I don't think, even if everybody was forcibly expelled from the land, I don't think the culture is going to go away, because there's enough people that are Palestinian, not only who would be still with us, but from around different places who maintain the culture, right? But let's hope that doesn't happen. I don't think that's going to happen, by the way. I think that's a step too far. That's okay, even for the crazy Zionist-led governments and questionable power structures, I think it's just a step too far. And especially if the world has all these different things that go through these different judicial systems like the ICJ, and then it says, hey, these people are doing this, but you won't do anything because you have veto power at the UN. Eventually something's going to give, right? You can only push back against the international community for so long before your pariah status catches up with you. And by the way, I don't know if you're a fan of Israel. I'm not a fan of Israel at all in terms of, their history and their behavior. like I said, I'm for people who are Jewish not being persecuted. But the way it all came to be is, as suspect as anything can be, and you add in what they've been doing since, and it's not acceptable, right? In my opinion. So I'm very critical. But if you are somebody who, and I even think this too, even though I'm critical of Israel and I'm kind of on the fence about, it's probably not going anywhere, unless something crazy happens, but they're not doing themselves any favors, and there was actually somebody from their government, I don't know if you heard this or not, but there was one member of their legislature called the Knesset. He's a far left politician, way far left than what we have in the United States, self-described socialist and Marxist, who spoke out against the government. He said, that he can't stand by and just watch this happen without speaking out against it. That's unheard of in the United States. There's only one person in our whole Congress that's been obstinate, which is Rashida Tlaib, Palestinian American. And I don't think she's going to be back in Congress. So I think at this point she realizes they're going to spend a ton of money to get her out. So what does she have to lose, right? So she's starting to speak out more about it, which I think is good. Well, I'm sad she's not going to be there, most likely. We'll see if her constituents support her, but maybe they will. Anyway, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I actually know somebody who has family in Ecuador. I haven't talked to them yet, so I don't know. I was actually thinking about going down. The capital is called Quito. It's about 100 kilometers in off the coast. I don't know if you know the geography of sort of the northern third of Ecuador is the capital's Quito. And so I know some people that moved there. And so I was thinking about it because it's not a bad place to be, but political unrest was my biggest concern with something like this happening. Same thing with Bolivia. Bolivia is a beautiful place, all rich, agricultural, mountainous, beautiful places to go, but they have less than stable political systems. So I don't know. I'm not sure where the hell to go. I don't know where there's a good place to go in this world moving forward, right? Somebody says, can I tell us about today's UN meeting? I didn't follow today's UN meeting about Yemen. I can look it up if we want to. Yeah, listen, there's going to be a lot more unrest in the coming decade. I think we're seeing the beginning stages. I don't know how you all feel, but I did a video about this a while back. I kind of feel like we've turned the page into a brand new chapter, and that all of the stability and normalcy that we thought we had, which is not the greatest before, that's gone. Ancient history. So we have basically the former world, pre-COVID, pre-9/11, like that whole era, gone. And now we have this tumultuous sort of new world system of all these vying for power with the BRICS nations and the demise of the dollar. U.S. is in a late-stage empire, conflict. It's going to be a mess, is my guess. And I don't know where you go to avoid it, I don't know. I wish I had an answer. I mean, people have talked about going to Norway. I don't know if you heard about Norway today. This is an environmental thing. They just announced publicly that they're going to start selling drilling leases under the sea, underwater drilling leases to try to mine for minerals and stuff like that. It's bad precedent. There's supposedly a lot of stuff under the sea, different minerals, cobalt, coltan, the stuff they need to make electric cars, which is in high demand. But it's just a whole next chapter of just human exploitation of environments we really have no business being in. We're not made to be fish. We're not supposed to be down on the seabed mining shit, right? We're supposed to be up here getting by. So a lot of people disagree with me. They want to see more human development, more expansion. Even Jackson Hinkle, for example, he's somebody who I agree with on most things, but he and I completely disagree on that issue. He's more of the mindset of Lyndon LaRouche and the whole movement of, that whole Lyndon LaRouche movement. And they've had him on as a speaker before, and he thinks the path to human, same thing with Elon Musk. He wants to see humans develop. And while I'm not against humans having the best thing we can get going for ourselves, one, there's huge inequality, right, between the wealthy, top third of the world versus the rest of the world, which basically lives in poverty. So that's not fair. And on top of that, if we just continue trashing the ecological systems, that's like throwing caution to the wind, right? Just for short-term prosperity. We may get a half dozen generations through what Nate Higgins calls the carbon pulse, right? This one-time sort of shot of energy that we got from finding oil and natural gas and coal. And maybe it lasts longer. Maybe it lasts for 300 years, whatever it is, But maybe with climate change, we have more crazy times. But is it worth it to go through 3 or 4 or 5 generations of prosperity for every other generation afterwards to be completely dealing with the negative. I don't know how you feel about that, but I don't even have kids. So I care more about people's kids regarding these issues than they do, because But I just don't think I don't think the path to happiness is materialism, and it's like a bad lesson to learn, right? And I don't know. I just the more I see of human beings, the more I see. And there's plenty of good aspects of humans and plenty of good people, but there's also a lot of people who happen to rise to the positions of power that are they're just a different type of person. And I just don't understand how. And maybe when you get in those positions, you just kind of have to do those things. Maybe that the inertia and the systems you find yourself in just require that kind of behavior. But it seems awfully discouraging, that humans seem to be hell-bent on this path of economic growth and never-ending battle for more and more and more. And the fact that, it's being driven mostly by a small subset of humans that just want more and more and more. And, the rest of us, what's happening to you lately? Am I missing something? Somebody asked, what's happening to you lately? Are you talking about am I aging or something like that? Do I look like I've aged longer in the last week or two? Or are you talking about what I'm talking about? Why don't you elaborate on what you mean by that? I don't even know your name. It says what is that? I can't even see it. Anyway, I've had my eyes, maybe this is the same person with a different name, that my eyelids are too close to my something or other, and then this person says, what's happening to you? I don't know. Good question. Maybe we'll find out. I'm doing okay, Chocoberry. I told people earlier today I had a less than ideal day, but like anything else, you push through it, right? But if anybody's showing concern, thank you. If it's somebody kind of listen, I can take it too. I dish it out quite a bit, right? You have to be able to take it back and laugh about yourself, because otherwise you get upset. Okay, here comes M. I never M. Please come up, M. Oh, thanks. Thought I might have had something on my face or something.
Hey, Chip.
Hello.
I'm so nervous to be in here. I'm not really a
No,
speaking kind of person. But there
don't
was
be.
something I just wanted to ask you. So, in the last live that I was in with you doing, there was a couple of Israelis in the chat. And it was the first time that I've seen them be really respectful. And after the chat, one of the girls messaged and said, we obviously disagree, but thanks for being respectful. But it prompted me to try and see things from her perspective as someone who was born in Israel. This is her life. She knows nothing different. Obviously, there's a lot of indoctrination, a lot of ignorance there.
Yeah.
But I guess it prompted me to start sort of thinking, how do we change the minds of people that are born into that indoctrination and they have a view on Palestinians? And, is there a way that we can do it? Because from what I got from her, the biggest thing that she wanted was her own pain validated, like anyone really. Everyone, we're all
Sure.
the loudest when we're not feeling heard.
Yeah.
It's very off topic, but I just wonder what your thoughts were on, whether that's something we could tackle. I feel like everything's really high tension. Everybody's,
Yeah.
things are escalating. If there's a way to maybe, on a human level, have conversations with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have we do have common humanity, right? I think in the most part, different paths or different ways of being, but we all kind of want the same sort of basic things. And so we can always talk about that. And I like to ask people questions, right? So, if somebody makes a demonstrative statement, I like to say things like, how did you come to believe that? Where did you get that from? And then I say, why do you believe that? Or like you said, what's most important to you right now? What matters to you? I like to say a lot of Israelis, I think rightly so, and even people who view Israel from the outside as sort of a precious homeland for Jewish people, I think they want, above all, they want security. They want to be left to live their lives and not be under the threat of harm. I think everybody wants that, right? And then you have to ask yourself the question: well, what's the framework under which you can realistically have that expectation, right? Can you be doing something harmful to someone else in perpetuity, but expect to be left alone, right? That's a fair question to ask. And I think that's a fair question to ask them. But again, if you ask somebody a question like, hey, I know people that have spoken the way that I hear you speaking. Have you had a chance to watch something like XYZ? Because obviously there are people who have been through the experience of growing up in Israel, and now they see it differently than they saw it when they were younger. And is it possible, just you can ask the person this, is it possible that if you saw some information that might present some other ideas, do you think you might possibly think differently about something, or have you made your mind up?
Mm.
There's a lot of times when people make their mind up, that's not a quality that most people want to admit to. Like, most people want to think of themselves as open-minded and a critical thinker. But if you're closed off to stuff, you can't possibly call yourself that. I like to ask those questions to somebody. Do you feel like you're somebody with an open mind? Yeah. You
Mm.
think of yourself as a critical thinker? Yeah. So at what point do you allow information into your circle to evaluate the things you currently believe in? Is that something you do? Do you challenge your beliefs, or do you just let them be and want to hear stuff that reinforces them? And if that's where somebody is, that's okay too. I'm someone who likes to try to find information to challenge what I know. I think I've done a lot of work to get to where I am, but there's always something new to bump into, right? And a lot of times you don't even know what you don't even know until you bump into it, right?
Mm.
There was somebody here named, I think it was, what was his name? Somebody's name. I don't know if it was a guy or a girl, but said, I completely disagree with Chip, but he's respectful. Like I said, it's TikTok guy. That's how I feel. I completely disagree with Chip, but he is very respectful and deserves our respect. Well, thank you for that, first of all. And if you do disagree, like I say, that's fine. And I'll let you finish up, Em. I'm sorry to jump in. But this is exactly the kind of person I want to speak with, not because I want to, tell you that I'm right and you're wrong, and I'm going to show you. But it's good to exchange ideas and thoughts. And maybe you disagree with me about development, or maybe you disagree about this issue or anything else. But I enjoy talking about it.
Yeah, thanks, Chip. Yeah, it was interesting just seeing a couple of Israelis that were actually respectful. They disagreed, but they were respectful, and I feel like that does open up the dialogue to be able to talk. I feel like, do they not know
Yeah.
about the history? Are they not aware of it? What have they been taught? I find it really interesting how they can have their view, but I feel like the first thing she wanted was just to have her pain acknowledged, and I can do that. I do have a lot of empathy. That's fine. I can understand that she would be holding some pain, but I would
Yeah.
have loved to have been able to go further and say, do you think that this is okay? Do you agree with the apartheid systems that are in place? And yeah, it just was something I had prompted me to look further into after the last live.
I mean, and the way that was just phrased by you, I'm not blaming you for this, but to most people sitting on the Israeli side, they have an automatic defensive reaction when they hear the term apartheid. They're kind of taught to
Yeah.
put it back. Again, the best way to say it is, you. How about if you make your own determination about what you believe apartheid is, but watch this in terms of what's happening and see if you think it fits the definition or not. I'd
Mm.
like to hear what you
Yeah.
think, and then
Thank
show
you.
them that thing by Anna Balter, because I think that's an interesting account. She was a Jewish woman who obviously who didn't believe this stuff, and then she came to believe it once she got exposed to it. Right?
Mm. And I think because I was indoctrinated into evangelical Christianity, so I understand how
Sure.
indoctrination works and how insidious it is and how hard it is to deconstruct. And I'm like, do you get to a certain age before that happens? Obviously, if your parents tell you fire is hot, you go, okay, fire is hot. You don't go, well, I need to figure that out for myself first, mum and dad. You just take their word as is. And
Yeah.
I'd love to be able to sit down with people that are born there and try and change their minds, because I tried to put myself in her position, specifically her. She
Yeah.
understands that what's happening in Gaza is catastrophic and horrific, but she couldn't get past her own pain to be able to see the pain of others. And yeah, it was just something I haven't seen discussed. How do we change their minds? We're obviously very set in our beliefs, and that's
Yeah.
very human. But yeah.
They may be asking the very same question, right? Because they
Mm.
think that quote unquote people on this side just don't understand from their perspective. I had people say that. Someone told me I was a moron, and that I just couldn't see it from what it means to people who are living in Israel to understand what they're up against. So it's true. If you're someone who lives in Israel and there's a constant threat of things being sent through the air towards where you live, that's an unsettling experience, right? Fair is fair. You can argue why it happens, but in other people's point of view, it shouldn't happen at all, no matter what. They say that you should only pursue peaceful resolution. And then you could say, well, that's been tried for decades and it hasn't taken anyone anywhere. So what is one to do? That's a fair thing to say back, and who knows? But if there was a legitimate peaceful path to achieving a separate state, that most Palestinians would rather not be involved in some sort of armed activity. They'd rather just get it worked out, right?
Mm. Yeah, of
Think.
course. Yeah. Thanks,
And then
Chip. Yeah.
and then what comes in, by the way, the way they sort of tell the story is that, well, they just hate Jewish people. So no matter what we do, they're going to want to unalive us, which I think is disingenuous and silly. But that's the narrative that gets painted on there. So therefore, there's no negotiating with these H group because they're just bad people and they just want to unalive us. It's silly.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Chip. I appreciate
Yeah,
your
of course,
thoughts
Sam.
on that. Thank you.
Now, somebody here said they do. I'm assuming that's referring to that they do, meaning that the H group just wants to unalive people. Let's look at that for a second. Let's unpack that. Okay, so most people that I know, everybody that I know, doesn't have a direct hatred for anybody else because of who or what they are from the gate. Are there some people who probably have some prejudice in them? I guess. But I think that's the vast exception among people, right? I think what people want is like the Israelis want. They want to be left alone and they want to be given the right to do their own thing their way in their own time and space and get somebody off their back, right? No one wants to be controlled by somebody else. And when they're living under a perception of control, they want to be free of that control. I think that's normal too. So the question is, if you're in a country, maybe you don't see it as someone's being controlled. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to be able to talk to a user, but you got to be respectful. That's my one rule in here. And if you're not being respectful, so I'm going to ask you to see the door. Let me get you out of here. See you next time. Okay. Actually, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll leave you in here. I'm just going to keep you muted for the rest of the live. If you want to stick around, you can. But please be respectful. That's all I ask. And I think I'm being respectful of everybody else. Let's address the claim that the H group just wants to unalive Jewish people. So I agree that in the 1988 charter, if you print it out, you can go to Google and look at it. It does say that the H group, one of the parts of their mission is to remove people forcibly from the state of Israel, the Zionist entity. Now that's been interpreted as all Jewish people. Okay, but it doesn't say every last Jewish person. It says the Zionist entity. And that's what a lot of people say outside the region. So again, you can conflate the two. But that language was removed from the 2017 revision in its entirety. And all it says now is that understanding that the political reality is that the state of Israel is probably not going to go anywhere. It's a thing to stay. The best next best thing they could do, they're not going to recognize it because they still think it's sort of a thumb in the eye. But they're willing to accept a two-state solution based on the pre-1967 borders, which includes Israel pulling back out of the West Bank, out of occupied East Jerusalem, and of course out of no more blockade of the. I'm sure that for Syria's standpoint, they want them out of the Golan Heights too, but that's not part of their charter. But I think that's what Israel should do. And I know they've done a lot of things to settle land since then that they believe is theirs because of what happened in 1967. But most Israelis are under the incorrect assumption that what Israel did was defend itself in 1967. So I like to talk a lot about biophysical reality versus narrative. So here's what happened in 1967. The Egyptian military was doing exercises in the Sinai, as was the Syrian military in southwest Syria. That was perceived as a mobilization and a pre-war footing to go into Israel any moment, like an imminent attack. That was the perception. That was not the plan of the other nations. They weren't planning to attack. But that's what the Israelis say they thought. Now, a lot of historians believe that that was used as an excuse, as a reason to be able to go in. Just like the U.S. had a reason to go into Iraq, right? Their reason was publicly stated, WMD, weapons of mass destruction. And therefore, because this leader, Saddam Hussein, was a danger to the international community, they had to go in and disarm Saddam, right? So that was the reasoning. Now, that's a narrative. So the narrative from the Israeli perspective is we had to defend ourselves by offensively going in and, dropping munitions on the Egyptian Air Force so they couldn't get off the ground and do something. Same thing in southwest Syria, and then move their troops across towards the Jordan River to push back the Jordanians. Now, once Israel started its incursion, people fought back because they were pushing in. They weren't going in yet, but Israel came, so they came to fight. Israel was able to push them back and secure that territory. I agree with that. But that's not, quote unquote, winning a war. That's moving in and taking territory illegally and militarily, which after World War II was considered off limits because they didn't want to have the next, mustache man and crew trying to go conquer the world, right? And everyone. And by the way, if anybody should agree with that, it should be people that live in Israel, who a lot of descendants of whom were victims of the mustache man experiment, and they ended up moving to Israel for safety, which is great. But it's ironic that those same descendants did what they did in 1967, the same thing that they were against that group doing to their forefathers and the world in general, right? So therefore, that's a narrative. So one narrative is Israel preemptively came in and took the territory. Another narrative is we had to defend ourselves, so we did what we did and we won, right? That's the narrative that their population is told. So they literally believe that the land is theirs and they're managing the land that's theirs. And there's these residents who all they want to do is unalive Israelis, and that's their problem, and therefore they must be dealt with accordingly. That's the narrative from the Israeli side. So for security, they have to do all these things. They built the separation barrier. They put in these checkpoints in the West Bank. When they pulled out of Gaza and there was rocket fire, they decided to blockade Gaza. And their claim is, and there's some legitimate security claims for Israel, I agree with that, but I think it's exacerbated by the way they manage the control for their security. And when you unalive people regularly as a part of your control system and you make their lives as miserable as possible unnecessarily so, and you call it security, that creates an anger in somebody for no particular reason other than you can because you have the upper hand. I think that's one of the biggest arguments. That's one of the biggest things that I get upset about when it comes to looking at this as an outsider. I don't know anybody in Palestine. I have no reason to give a darn one way or the other than the fact that I find it to be the power differential is disgusting. And what the Israeli government does tries to justify it by basically, I think, lying to their citizenry and hiding it from the media for most decades up until now. They're doing stuff they don't have to do in order to maintain their security because their ultimate goal, most believe, is that they're trying to subjugate the people and make them so miserable that they'll leave their land so they can further take what they want and keep it for themselves because they feel like they own it now, and therefore they're trying to push people off. They can't just go across and, completely unalive everybody because the world will look at that as a complete, that would be considered a genocide, obviously, in terms of everybody's eyes. And what we're seeing now is considered that by the international community. But I think that it's clear right now, it's hard to argue that that's not the intent, right? You'd have a pretty hard time convincing the average fifth grader if you showed them the map and showed them what's happening. Well, what's this person doing? They're taking over more land and they're pushing people off of it, right? That's pretty straightforward at this point. So for those of you who think that I'm totally wrong and that the age group, all they want to do is that, think for a second. Just think for yourself, okay? Obviously the Israelis don't want to do that. Most of them, they want to just get people out of the way. Now, if they have to, they'll do what they have to. But they're using, and listen, I'm not saying that anything that happened on 10/7 was a picnic for Israelis. It was, like you said, it was a body blow. It was a shock to many, especially because many people don't see this context. They didn't understand, other than the bloodlust, why would they do this to us? And therefore, they have to pay a price because never again. But here's the thing. If the occupation and the blockade were lifted and removed, there wouldn't be a need for an H group. The only reason the H group existed in the first place was because when you have a resistance group, it's because there's something to resist against, right? Resist. So if most resistance groups only form because of occupation and colonization, which makes sense, right? And look at the Warsaw Ghetto, for example, okay? There was something during World War II called the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. It didn't say peace. It wasn't the Warsaw Ghetto peaceful negotiation process, right? You had a group being horribly subjected to inhumane conditions of no fault of their own by an oppressive power. So they weren't able to, quote unquote, negotiate that. They had to fight back in any way they could, given the circumstances. It's no different with the H group. There's been efforts for decades after decade to try to negotiate deals. The Israeli population and the world in the diaspora, the Jewish population, is told that they've been offered peace. The Arabs, as they say, have been offered peace multiple times, and they never want peace. They always turn down the peace deals. That's not the same. If you understand the inner workings of the peace deals, which most people don't, you will find that none of the deals that were offered, yes, there was different degrees of land that were considered, but nothing was free from Israeli control, both from a military standpoint, economic standpoint, and other. How can you possibly have freedom and autonomy for your own setup if somebody else controls it and won't give you a deal unless you acquiesce to their permanent control? I wouldn't say yes to that. So that's the problem, and it never gets talked about the real way. The deals were never good deals. In fact, most Israeli scholars who look at the thing and most Israeli politicians who are no longer in power say the same thing. I wouldn't have taken the deal, they say. So why should Arafat have taken a deal, right? You have to look out for your people and the future of your people. You can't take a bad deal just to try to appease a peace process. It's got to be peace with dignity and autonomy. And the Israelis have never been willing to let that go. Because ultimately, I think their goal is not to have a peaceful resolution. They knew if they made these deals that way, they'd never be taken, because it doesn't serve the long-term purposes. If you look at every subsequent prime ministership over many decades, all the different governments that have gone on, one thing hasn't changed. There's been repeated building of settlements throughout the West Bank. It's never stopped, even though there's UN Resolution 242 that basically condemns it. And all they've done is more separate roads, all sorts of checkpoints, immiseration. I can go through 1,000 things. I don't want to go through it all. Watch as a primer, life in occupied Palestine. If you're somebody here who's, thinking that I'm crazy with what I'm saying, that I'm indoctrinated, I'm a pro-Palestinian, I'm too biased or whatever, watch for yourself. Watch Life in Occupied Palestine, done by a young Jewish American who was challenged by friends when she didn't believe the things I'm talking about. She went to visit Ramallah, which is a city in the West Bank, and she found out, much to her surprise, that it was worse than what she'd been told. And she just felt so badly for the people that were dealing with this that she came back and she talked about it. Like I said, most people who are brought up in a Zionist environment, whether it's inside Israel or outside Israel, they don't know what they don't know. So when someone like M asks, how do you reach these people, right? It's not easy, because many people have as a part of their identity the belief system they've been handed to them their whole life, which makes sense, right? Why wouldn't you? It seems normal. Why would anybody lie to you? Well, you come to learn, both in my country as well as in places like Israel and elsewhere, you don't get the full story. Yeah, of course, come on up. Yeah, let me see if there's somebody in the queue here. Yeah, Ifran. So I don't know if you agree with that. If you're from Israel or you're from outside of Israel and you support Israel and you disagree with that the way I've looked at it, come up and let's talk it over. But here's Ifran who wants to come up. I hope I'm saying that right. Ifran.
Oh, yes. Hi, Chip. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's my name right. I guess the question I have is quite contentious and loaded, but to put it short, I guess I can appreciate why Lebanon and Jordan and Egypt stayed away from opening their borders to respect the principle of not, giving into what Israel was trying to do, drive the people out.
Right.
But what I'm wondering now is, what is the impetus for, other people's involvement, especially other Islamic militant groups who have different ideologies between Shia and Sunni? And, is this more of more of an effort to resist based on political interest or, religious interest? I'm just wondering what's unifying more of the Middle East now. And why it took so long, if that makes sense.
Well, remember that, yeah, good question. So remember at the beginning of this, before this popped off, there was not only a peace deal in place between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, which is on the east coast of Saudi Arabia, but then you have basically other peace deals that are already in place with Egypt and Jordan to some extent. So there was a framework being developed that was pushing Israel closer to the quote unquote Arab world and further away from the control of the Islamic states. And so some would argue that what we're seeing is not just necessarily religious, but there's also economic and political reasons why people don't want that to happen. No one wants to have their enemy strengthened by alliances with others. So they look at that as like selling out. So it's not always because of just the morality, although I think everybody personally has a pull in that direction. But look at Iran, for example. How are their interests served by what's going on with respect to the skirmishes and Hezbollah and what Israel's not able to do with respect to development and stuff like that off the coast? Because it's a hornet's nest right now. It's a disaster. No companies want to come and set up shop when war's going on. So it's all usually primarily it's for political and economic interests, and then subsequently sometimes religious or at the last personal reasons.
Absolutely. It seemed like Yemen was the only one that was willing to essentially sacrifice itself for, its values and humanity. And
Yep.
just because it had nothing to lose. It's the 11th poorest country in the world. And
Well, it's the rebels, not the government, but the rebels, the
the
Houthi
rebels,
rebels
sorry.
fighting the government.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks, Chip, for your answer.
Sure. Happy to do it. Happy to do it. Yeah, that's why it was so much fun having Dr. Liam O'Mara on the program. If you don't know who Dr. Liam O'Mara is, he's also he's a professor, a history professor of world history with a focus on Middle Eastern studies. very bright person, very knowledgeable, obviously, because he got his PhD in that. And I remember during our conversation, somebody chirped in afterwards and said, Dr. Romero doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He's completely wrong. And so are you. And this person's continued to email me periodically. First, they sent me a slew of emails with a bunch of vitriol and then expected me to do my research. Like, I don't know what you expect there. That's not the way to get people to do stuff. But he says that every single thing we said was wrong. And again, I don't know what this person's background is who's criticizing me. He came on twice under different names and was saying the same. He was asking me, what was it about my childhood that made me want to side with the underdog? The reason I side with somebody who's being oppressed is because I think it's the decent thing to do, right? I wouldn't want to be oppressed. Yeah, we've been talking about the tunnels. We'll talk more about that later if you want to. Yeah, and the guy came on 2 different times, and they kept asking me when he sent me emails. He's like, what is it about your childhood? Why were you raised this way? I'm like, dude, it's not my childhood. Anyway, some people ask some strange questions sometimes, right? I just said that I did say if I'm watching a football game and the underdog is close in the fourth quarter, I usually root for the under because it's more fun to see a team that's not as good be able to beat a team that's better. If I was watching a middle school basketball team play a college team and they were close, I'd be rooting for the younger, less tall team. It's just kind of fun. But it's also kind of the right thing to do, I think, especially when people are oppressed. No, I mean, I've been accused of all sorts of stuff, but no, I'm of European descent, obviously. I'm white, Anglo-Saxon type of person, went to Christian school as a kid, went to Catholic high school, grew up in a Christian family, somewhat of privilege. My dad was a lawyer. My grandfather was a judge. I haven't had a life where I've had to struggle financially like a lot of people do, I'm very lucky. But I served in the military, so I've paid some dues to society. I've told you I've been through my trials and tribulations with the law. And, I've been through some stuff, and nobody else in my family has served in the military. So, I'm glad I've had that experience. But nobody's perfect, right? We all have some bias coming into anything, right? We all want to think we're unbiased, but we can't get free from some of our biases. Like, I'm a Westerner, right? I wasn't brought up in an Islamic world, so my worldview is not shaped by Islam as much as it is by Western society, right? I can't get away from that. That's just the way it is. So nobody's fully impartial, right? All you can do is within the stuff you've been given is try to be objective despite those things. Somebody says Egypt is extorting Palestinians in this. Well, put it this way. I know that for when aid comes in now, there's people that are selling it. They're demanding payment for stuff that's ridiculous. So there's a black market going on, which is taking advantage of the crisis, which it's like when there's a hurricane in the United States and there's plywood that people need to put up on the storefront so the windows don't get smashed. People will buy a bunch of plywood and then they'll resell it at massive, it's called profiteering, price gouging. And it's illegal, but people still do it because if you don't pay it, you're not getting the plywood. Same thing for the aid, right? People keep asking me about the Ben Gurion Canal. We've talked about that a lot in the past. That's been on the drawing board for so long and it hasn't been done yet. And some people are arguing that geographically the path, once you come up through the Gulf of Aqaba and you enter into the eastern part of Israel to the south, you have a straighter shot if you go directly through Gaza versus if you go north and go around it. I don't know. I don't think that's enough of an impetus for all this to happen. I think it may be a piece of it if it decides to go through. It might be a benefit to have an easier pathway through North Gaza if it does get annexed. And somebody showed me a satellite photo of what looks like a wall being built between the northern part of Gaza and the south. So, which would lead one to indicate there's some plan to come in and segment Gaza, maybe have some sort of administrative occupation for a while like the US did in Iraq. And then once the government is situated through whatever's satisfactory to the Israelis, then they'll withdraw. That's what people are surmising based on what we're seeing. So who knows? Yeah, somebody says they're charging $10,000. I heard it was $7,000, but maybe it's up to $10,000 now, charging, per person to cross Rafah. That's the southern border. Yeah, that's sad. I mean, who has that kind of money, right? Especially in Gaza. It's terrible. But like I said, there was a guy named, was it Mr. TikTok or TikTok guy or something like that? If you're still here and you want to come up, you said, you disagree with me about everything, but you like the fact that I'm not disrespectful, which I appreciate that. come on up and let's talk. Pick any issue you want to talk about. It doesn't have to be any of these issues. It can be anything. Listen, I realize my views are on the tail end of the world. I mean, I'm somebody who's a weird mix of environmentalism and vegan and geopolitics and just all this stuff that most people don't even think about, right? So I'm not saying that my views are in the mainstream by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, I think good debate is good. What I really don't like, I've tuned into a lot of lives. I try to listen as much as I can and learn. But some of these lives have these panels of people, and it's like they're all talking over each other, and you can't get a word in. You can't even listen to it because like 5 people are speaking. And I'm like, why doesn't the host, like Eric is a great example. Eric Warsaw, who his show is probably going on right now. He does a really good job of that. But taking turns and giving people a chance to speak. Once in a while, you can have a back and forth where it's manageable. It's fun to listen to people go at it sometimes, as long as it's, And by the way, I'm not saying that to the TikTok guy to call you out, like be a man or be a whatever it is. That's not that. It's that, if you have feelings about an issue, and obviously in text, it's hard to get it out because they're limited to so few characters, come on up and talk. You don't have to show your face. You don't have to, you don't have to be a great speaker. You can even just ask me questions or whatever. So yeah, on the panel, somebody says that they're Jerry Springer. If you don't know who Jerry Springer is or the Jerry Springer Show, it's a show where they had all these weird guests and people would fight. It was this whole chaotic scene. That was the whole shtick of the show, was mass chaos and fighting and, who's the father of the baby and all that kind of silly garbage. And he died, by the way, Jerry Springer. He was the mayor of Cincinnati in Ohio, by the way. Most people don't know that. He was a pretty politically active guy. He made a lot of money off that show too, by the way. Yep, tomorrow's the hearing, at least the beginning of it. Somebody says, I've dated myself. Yeah, listen, I'm 56, so sometimes, again, it's always weird when some of your childhood, like, people that are celebrities start to pass away, which for me has been a lot lately, right? I remember when Robin Williams died. That was the one that I was like, oh no, I was so sad to hear that. But if you don't know, he had early stage dementia, something called Lewy body dementia. Bad stuff. So he basically got out before it got worse, which I can respect that, right? Anyway. Yep, sad. And the other thing is, this is very conspiratorial, so I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole, but there are a number of people that are not alive anymore. Most notably, guys like Anthony Bourdain, Chris Cunnell from Audio Slave, and of course, Soundgarden. And then, or Chris Cornell, I think his name is. And then you have that guy, Spencer Bennington, who was the head of Linkin Park, lead singer. These people all had some form of, history of depression and mood swings. So it's not completely off the reservation to think they might have unalived themselves. I don't know about Anthony Bourdain, though. But the other thing that's been alleged is that they were advocating for some of these issues related to child, when there are so many cars on the highway, you can't go anywhere. Child, that thing. So there's a lot of conspiracy around why they're gone. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard a lot about that. Yeah, these were good musicians. Chris Cornell is an amazingly talented guy. So, but I think a lot of people behind the scenes are, it's like kind of what I was going through earlier today. You get these really bad moods. You get these periods of time where you don't feel as good about life or whatever, and you get caught up in this negativity, right? It's very easy to happen. By the way, I took my 2 cats to the vet recently because they're older now, and one got checked, doing fine. The other one got checked. It took some blood work just to make sure because he's lost some weight. $560 for a vet visit and some blood work. I was like, what? That's crazy, right? That's a lot of money to shell out unexpectedly. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people go through it, and a lot of people end up turning to, illegal substances to cope with it, right? Kind of self-medicating, which can be dangerous, right? Especially now that there's this stuff, I'm not going to say it because, again, my thing will get age appropriated, but there's stuff being put into it nowadays that's more dangerous, which we've all heard of. And it's become a real problem in the, Linkin Park's really popular band. It's Lincoln with L-I-K-I-N, not Lincoln like Abe Lincoln. Linkin Park. They're a good band to listen to. Anybody else want to come up and chat for a second or two? We got about 40 minutes left in the program. Have you ever heard of a guy named the Handsome Liberal? He's a black gentleman. He's always parked in his car, and he has this red MAGA hat, and he does these lives. And I've been following Tim for a long time just because he did videos on Uber ride sharing. And I don't know if you know this, I used to do Ubering. I did it for about a year, and I did well with it for the first year, but then it just, the money fell off a cliff. And at some point, I'd love to talk about that because my experience there, I learned a lot about it, of course. And, for those of you who still use Uber, I try not to use Uber or Lyft because I think they're just bad companies, but they treat the drivers like hell. Oh, my cat was using the litter box. Yeah, and this is the crazy part. So right when Uber shaved the driver pay in April of 2023, this company's stock has gone up 100% since then. It was trading in the mid 20s. Now it's in the high 40s, low 50s. It's like, what the hell? Yeah, I can talk about the protests. So there's a big protest this Saturday. It's called the March for Gaza. And it's going to be a pretty big one, I think. And, a lot of people are going to go. In fact, if you go into my Linktree in my bio, there's a thing in my main page where my videos are. And it says Linktree Chip Barnes. And it's clickable. So if you click on it, it'll take you to a list. And midway down the list is a group called January 13th Protest. So if you're somebody who wants to go or wants to find out more about it or wants to coordinate with people who are going, check that out. And you can come talk. There's already a bunch of people chatting on there. There's also a group of women, I forgot to mention this last time, that contacted me. And they're a part of the same community on Telegram that we have. And they mentioned they have somebody in Egypt who makes blankets that are going to make them for people of Gaza at cost and then supply them, of course, when they get to go in. So they're raising money. Hey, Kristen. So that could be a good thing to do. I'm thinking about putting the link on my Linktree because it's somebody who I've verified. I didn't want to do any fundraising for myself or anybody else until I was able to verify what's going on. The march is in Washington, D.C., so it's taking place at what's called the National Mall, which is where a lot of protests take place. It's the big area that sits down between the Washington Monument. All the museums are there, like the National History Museum, stuff like that. Air and Space Museum, those things. So it's going to be big. I mean, my guess is it's going to be between 500 and 700,000 people, if I had to guess. It's going to be big because a lot of people are pissed off about this right now. And just so you know, some practical things, if you're thinking of going, I went to the pro-Israel protest, which is about 300,000 people or so, many of whom were paid to go, by the way. They give college kids $250 if they would go to the protest, which is, sounds familiar, right? Being paid to talk a certain way or do stuff. So, but if you do go to one of these protests, first of all, there's no food available. There's some trucks that park out there, but because of crowds and because of cafes, you don't get anything. So what you got to do is bring your own snacks, banana, trail mix, whatever. And then you want to bring some milk. You're like, why do I bring milk? You want to bring milk in case you get pepper sprayed. And the pepper spray they use in these crowds is way stronger than the pepper spray people get when it's way, way stronger. Or tear gas too. So you want to have milk because it helps mitigate the burning effects of it and you'll recover faster. And then you want to bring, some charging power for your phone if you're going to use it. But be aware of this, though. In many cases, I can't guarantee this, but I've heard, and it's been reported that there's some equipment out there called Stingrays. And I'm not talking about the thing in the ocean. A Stingray is an electronic device that sometimes law enforcement chooses to deploy, mostly when they're going after like drug dealers and stuff like that. But it's a cell phone signal capturing device that acts like a cell tower. So when your phone tries to connect up with a cell tower, like it always does, it actually connects with this device first, and then the data is sent onto the cell tower. So it acts like an intermediary, like a spider's web. And then it captures everything. It captures your phone ID, captures all your traffic, anything you're sending, or all the calls you make, any texts you send, even through a secure app like Telegram. So just be very careful if you're going to use your phone and you're going to communicate. And if you don't want to have your information, but you want to have your phone with you, they have these things called Faraday cages or Faraday bags, spelled Faraday. You can find them online. And they look like the little things you carry soda in, like if you're transporting pizza for a delivery company, like a little flap. And once you put your phone in there and you close the bag, test it at home. See if anybody can reach you, because they're supposed to deaden all the signals that come in and out of your phone. So the thing about these things is you might say, oh, I'm going to turn my phone off. If you don't know it, your phone still connects to a cell tower if it's turned off, just so you know. So it's still going to do that. There's something in everybody's phone that's built into it called an IMEI number. IMEI. It's a unique identifier. So when you get your phone from your provider, your number is your name, and your account is assigned with that phone ID. And so even if you turn your phone off, that information still gets put through the cell tower. So they're going to capture, they're going to know you were there, or at least your phone was there. So if some people don't care, like, I'm in the movement, so my identity, if anybody's trying to figure out who's on, they're going to have me in the list anyway. But if you're somebody who wants to remain anonymous, that's just tips for you there. So there's that. The best thing to do, by the way, your phone will not work while you're there. It won't have service. In other words, you won't be able to transmit stuff, whether it's emails, the GPS stuff might work because that's going to a satellite, right? But the terrestrial network gets too clogged up by so many people being in such a small space. So don't assume you'll be able to call your friend and link up. Not going to happen. So you have to pick a place ahead of time, like a subway stop or a restaurant or a key landmark or whatever. So that's important. And then finally, the best way to communicate, if you want to separate or catch other people, is just have radios, like walkie-talkies, like the good old days. Back when I was a kid, we had them all the time, because you didn't have cell phones. So some of them have pretty good range. So there's somebody in the group that I'm meeting up with that's going to distribute, I think they have 12 of them. So you can have 6 different pairs of people that can communicate. So that's pretty cool. But if you have somebody you don't want to get lost with, either have a meetup spot later or carry the walkie-talkies, or both. Anyway, just previous tips from having been there. People are suggesting that you wear, a scarf or bandana. Just if you don't want to be wearing I'm going to wear a bandana and a hat. It's smart to do. And some nondescript clothing, and hopefully just stay under the radar, right? Hey, what's happening? That's Joey. How you doing, Joey? Good to see you. Anyway, just tips. Listen, let's face it. Going to a protest, there's nothing wrong with it, right? You're not doing anything illegal. But there may be reasons for people to gather this, that we already, just by going on things like Gmail or this site right here, there's all sorts of questions about where this data goes, right? So, some of our digital footprint is already out there. Maybe the fact that maybe this gets labeled a negative, has a negative whatever connotation, and then because you're logged into this, maybe you're there too, and that I don't know what's going on. But it's all possible, right? The way I like to say it is, if you don't want to, whatever you wouldn't want to put on a neon sign on your house, don't put on the internet, because that's basically what happens. Everything gets recorded or can be recorded. Remember that. What Edward Snowden said, the reason why that guy, Edward Snowden, he was a contractor that worked for the NSA, the National Security Administration. And he was the whistleblower that said, basically, there's this big data centers, and just everything gets sucked up now like a vacuum cleaner, right? So pretty much if you're doing it in the continental United States, someone's got an eye on it if they want to, put it that way. And that goes for phone calls, cell phone calls, data transmission, your search engine results. Just to let you know, you watch these crime stories, and people will do things like look up how to dispose of a BODY. Like, they'll look that up on their own phone, or they'll go to the library and they'll log in under their name and they'll do it there. I mean, this is like idiotic 101 stuff, right? If you have to get somebody else's phone or a burner phone, like an anonymous phone, and use it once and get rid of it. There's just, again. And you never want to, by the way, you never want to keep the burner phone where you live or where you work or in your car. This is all stuff from my previous life that I had to learn. And then, so you have to have it somewhere away from you. And then you only want to use it there, and you never want to carry it with your other phone, because it looks at the geotag and it can follow the two together. So listen, it's a pain in the ass. Let's face it. To be outside the system is a real pain in the ass, right? I know all about it. There's much more I could tell you, but not the place to get into it. But whenever you go fully off the system, if you're no longer going to be using credit cards, and you don't worry about your credit, you don't want to be on the cell phone networks, there's a whole bunch of shit you got to do. Anyway, people are probably wondering, hey, Mo's here. Mo, I'm going to drag your ass up here. Get up here and talk, Mo. Damn it. Mo's got a lot of good stuff going on. He's a very interesting guy, a New Yorker. Gotta love New York, man. People from New York are no bullshit. Let's face it. I mean, Mo's a good guy, but let's face it, he can lay down the law when he needs to. I enjoy listening to Mo. If you don't watch Mo, is he coming up? No, he jumped. Sorry if I pushed you out, Mo. Anyway, if you ever get a chance to listen to Mo, either his videos or his live performances, he's great, man. Mo Pesci, MOE. Maybe he's in the box here. Okay, so not to play this down, we have Abdulaziz Al Hindi. Hope I said that right. Please correct me if I didn't.
Yes, brother. How are you, man?
Did I say your name right or no?
That's right. I don't care. I could be John. I could be anything. No problem. I'm just
Welcome.
human like you, you know.
Welcome,
Look,
John.
nice of you, brother. I tell you, those guys, they are already in planet Earth. They have sacrificed people, blood, souls, real souls, to get those devils into the Earth, planet Earth. And I have met the aliens personally, brother, eye to eye. And my son saw them too. He was asking me, "How come you are an old man playing with the kids?" I tell him, "No, you didn't see something like that." He said, "I swear to God, I did see, and they are gray color, gray like a brownish gray."
Can I just ask you, when and where were you when you had this interaction you're talking about?
Yeah, I'll make it. I make my talk shortcut. It's like this. I had a stroke. I died. I died about a minute and a half. I knew that I am out of this world. That was 12 years ago in Kuwait, a country called Kuwait.
Yeah.
And our country have kingdoms of invisible kingdoms of these aliens. They are here. They are here thousands of years ago. Okay. And they do exist, and they do show in radars, of course, but they don't talk about it, you know. But it shows on radar. Anyway, I was dying early in the morning, and usually we have prayer around 4 o'clock in the morning, early in the morning, as a Muslim, you know, to wake up. Usually I do cry, and I do enjoy praying to God. I love God too much, man. Okay, the thing is, I didn't wake up. I was dying, and God, I don't know, it's only God I know that who created us. That's the God I know, and you know, right? So he sent those creatures to rescue me, and they shook me like hell, man. They hurt my arm. I said, then I realized that I am still alive then. So I didn't go out from this life yet. So I want to defend myself against this, you know, too much pain on my left arm. I was sleeping on my right side. Then I want to hit as a boxer, defense myself. Then my eye met the creature eye. There are three of them. They are about above the knee height. You know, the knee, the average person knee is this height of those creatures. And the moment I open my eyes, they ask me, "Are you okay now?" Now I'm watching the lips is not moving, man. Their lips is not moving. And then I said, how they are talking like that? And how come usually I see these creatures in movies, what do you call it? What do you call it? This
Science fiction.
yeah, fictional movies, this kind of movies. Then I said, what the hell I am seeing? I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. But I said to myself, why they come to me? Why me? Why me to rescue me from this? You know, why they didn't leave me to die? You know, actually, when I felt like I'm dying, actually, I felt more safe than this life we are living, man. Actually, I feel very like home, you know, back home somewhere. I don't know where I'm going, but I know I'm going back home. Anyway, so after many years, my son came to me. He said, "Baba, look, I knew and I saw what I saw. And can you tell me it's true or not?" And I told him, and he told me what he saw. He told me, "Baba, I was studying on the table for next day exams, and you told me not to stay late at night so you can wake up early and go to school." And hello?
Did you get?
Can you hear me, brother?
Are you still here?
No. Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, I want. Yes, brother.
There we
Sorry,
go.
go ahead.
Please, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So what happened? He told me, I saw you playing with those kids. I said, Baba, look, these are creatures. I don't know what to tell you. If they are angels, okay, then they should be white with the, with the wings, and like we see them in movies, Hollywood movies. But these
Yeah.
are not. They look a little bit ugly, but not that ugly. They're acceptable. Now, now, I wake up in the middle of the night, like I told you early. I don't know to tell my family or not. And I told my son, after my son told me, Baba, what I saw, I told him, I don't know these creatures, what they are, but they come to rescue me. If they are bad, they wouldn't let me revive my heart and make it start again. They could have just left me like this and die. But I think they are angels. He said, Baba, they went out from the aluminium balcony, the door, without using the handle. I said, you saw that? He said, yes. Actually, I saw that too. They are going through the aluminium door of the balcony. And they did. Then I took some big knife. I want to defend my family. Let me kill one or two, then die. That's okay, but I must defend my family. I love my family. So I stayed on till the morning came where they have to go to school. They said, Baba, we have to go to school. I said, no, school today. They start crying, screaming, they have exams. Why you do this like this? I said, that's it. I am your father. You're not my father. I am your father. Go back. I cannot drive, man. I cannot drive. I was so shocked, like my whole body is shaking, What did I see? I need somebody to ask somebody. And who's going to believe me? Who is going to believe what I said?
Yeah.
But I swear to our Creator, man. I swear to God, honestly, to our God who created us with his generosity. I saw them. Okay? These creatures, but they did not harm me. Okay? That's why I'm still alive today. And when they talk to you, brother, that I find out they don't talk to you like with lips, with blowing oxygen, air from their lungs. They talk to you from head to head, the center of the head, like between the eye, that area, okay, and they talk to you, and you can hear them, whatever your nationality. You're Japanese, you're Arabic, you're American. As long as you are human, you can hear them clear and loud, man. Go ahead, brother. Any question, please?
Yeah. So what part of the world were you in when this occurred?
That's back home in Kuwait. Kuwait, it's Arabic
In Kuwait.
country.
Yeah, I've been there before. I was in
Yeah,
the military. I was there in 1990.
yeah.
Um, and then here's the question. So this was in your residence in Kuwait that they came to visit you in your bedroom or something?
Actually, yes, I have a studio for recording. I record audio. I'm a musician, actually.
Okay.
Stage musician and stuff. I do love music. Plus, I love God. What's wrong with that? But the thing
Definitely.
is, uh, the thing is, they came to me in that room where I am closer to the balcony. Because sometimes I need to smoke outside like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where they came to my place, to my home, and they did. I saw them.
And how long were they with you? Remember how long it was from the moment you recognized seeing them? About how long did they stay with you?
About actually, brother, they've been working on my heart to start it again. They about a minute and a half. They've been
Okay.
working really hard to start my life again, to start actually to make my heart pump again. Okay.
And
Then
were you able to talk to them, or did they just talk to you?
no, actually, I replied them when they asked me, "Are you okay?" Then I replied, I said, "I'm good," And I feel embarrassed, because I was about to hit punch back, because they hurt my arm. Actually, they are not hurting my arm; they are trying to revive me, shake, 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 shake. Three of
Yeah.
them, you
Yeah.
know. So actually, I've been hurt from that physical. Actually, I think, brother, like this. If they are not sure that Abdul Aziz, me, the slave of God, they are not sure that I will not harm them, they will not come and expose themselves to danger to come and rescue me. Why me? because they know what's inside my heart. I'm clean heart. Maybe I need shower every 2 days. Okay, but as a human, like a regular person, but inside, man, I'm very connected to God. I love God. I worship God with my eyes, with my body, all my body. I worship God. From my bottom of my heart. That's why maybe God wants me to live.
So, have you told anybody else this story, or this recollection of the time that you had this encounter?
Yeah, well, actually, first of them who saw with his eyes is my son. Some people they say, no, maybe this is stress. And what stress, man? My son saw them. He's stressed. We are Bluetooth connected or Wi-Fi. Hell, man. Some people are so stupid, man. They don't believe. They don't believe until they see in their eyes. Okay, here we go. And I warn many people. They are coming. They are in. They are here already on planet Earth. And
Yeah.
yeah, and Miami, what's happened lately, man? It's not a surprise for me. I know they're coming back. They're the years of jinn. We call them jinn, right? These aliens. These years of aliens. Now remember, brother. I don't want to scare you or scare anybody who's listening to us.
Yeah.
The thing is, these creatures, some of them, they can die for you, defending you. See where's the power of God. We're still alive today because of the generosity of the God creatures, us people. I'm not better than anybody. I'm not. I'm just a person like anybody else. If I go, nobody cares. Who am I? I'm nothing. I am nothing. Just a person. I came to this life. My eyes watching. I learn. Okay. I love. I hate here. I like this. This is all about, man. Life is too short. Plus, I cannot
Yeah.
believe I'm 62 years old, man. I cannot believe I still feel young inside, but I am old, man. Okay, consider, and like let's say 100-year person, maximum can live. A few more years, I will die anyway. Nothing to worry about. When you were telling me about CIA and FBI, I don't care, man. I'm not afraid.
Good.
Don't, really, I'm not afraid of anything, man. Well, I swear I'm so close to God that I wish I can die without suicide or shit like that. Double stuff. No, no way, man. I'm not afraid. So,
Good.
so, so be brave, man, and talk it. And by the way, they want people to talk about because they have a lot of things under their sleeve. They do have a lot of tricks. They are cooperating with those creatures. They are. They are doing earthquakes. They are doing artificial rain. They are doing tsunamis. They are doing digging in the ground and planting explosives to make what do you call it? Earthquakes and stuff like that. Volcano eruptions. They are doing that with the cooperation with those aliens. Can you believe that, man?
Yeah,
I
that's pretty
have
wild.
yeah, brother, I swear I'm not telling a lie at all. I'm telling you the truth, honestly
You
to
sound
God.
like you're very truthful. Thank you for telling us this. Was there anything else you wanted to share?
Actually, what I like, kindly, if anybody want to ask any question or anything, I want to reply to them. I don't want to leave anybody,
Yeah.
wondering what's going on like this. I can help. I can be on your side as well. Okay,
Well,
brother?
let me see if anybody else wants to come up and talk. That'd be fun, actually, if
Okay.
anybody wants to come
Okay.
up as a
Thank you
panel, or
very
if there
much.
are questions in the chat you want me to ask them, I can do that. You can probably see them too. So it says, "What in what language did they converse with you?"
Brother, as I told you, whatever your nationality is, as long as you are human, okay,
But was it
you
was it
will
Arabic or
understand.
English that they talked to you in?
I don't know, but I understood what they say. I
Okay.
don't. They did not speak, like a vocal voice from the mouth. They are talking head to head, meaning I understood that any nationality or any passport you are there, you will understand their language because head to head, you know, like that.
Okay. Okay. Well, interesting. Thanks, Sam. By the way,
Okay.
very nice of you. And let's see if there are any other questions that come in here. No,
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
say so, when they spoke in terms of sounds that came out of that, you said it came from their forehead area. Was
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
was it thoughts that you heard from them, or did you actually hear sounds in Arabic?
No, actually, it's a language that you will understand it as long as you are human. Now, again, no matter what is your tongue, you will understand as long as you
Okay.
are human. Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Interesting.
yeah, it's like that because I was looking to their lips. It's not moving, brother. The lips is not moving, and they are talking. I know they are talking. I know the source of the sound. Since I am sound engineer, I know that cannot be a sound because sound usually transfer with the air, but they are not blowing air from their lungs, and their lips not moving and cutting the words to speak
Okay.
it. It's head to head telepathy, like.
Interesting.
Yeah, do you want me off, brother? Do you want me to go
No,
down?
I'm looking for questions to see if I have some more questions for you. Are you talking about the caller or me? Someone has, do you have any health issues? Is that directed to the person answering questions? Somebody says, do you have any health issues? I don't know if that's for me or for you.
Brother, I am a fireman, 27 years as a rescue team here. I am not
Okay.
stupid. I'm not stupid. I'm not a person that takes alcohol. I don't take alcohol, man. It's forbidden in my religion. I don't hallucinate. I don't have any bullshit, any mental things like that. No, no, no. I'm super person. I always like to be, straight and balanced mentally. I don't like to do anything to my head just
Well,
to
that's
fool
good.
myself.
No,
So,
that, that,
so
that makes sense. So, no, it says, how old was your son when this happened? And one other question was, did he mention anything about Palestine?
yeah, what's happening in Palestine? The same creature they appear in Miami. The same creature they are using it down in Palestine, by the way. For your information, brother, I know
Where
what's going on there.
where
I
in
know what's
Palestine?
happening.
What are they doing there?
Because they want blood sacrification, but big amount, and they don't know why they are dying and what time because they are doing black magic. Both teams, they are allies, brother. You don't know.
I don't know. What do you
The
mean by both teams
allies
in
are
black? What
bullshitting.
does that mean?
Sorry, sorry,
I'm,
brother.
I'm, I'm confused as to what you mean by both teams are doing it and it's black magic. What do you mean by both teams and what do you
Oh
mean by
yeah,
black magic?
oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. They don't care. And Michael Jackson, before he died, he sang, "They don't care for us." Truly, they don't care for us, okay? And he died. But let me tell you like this: I don't care if I die after this. I don't give a. Okay? I don't care. I'm not afraid at all, at all, at all, because I love God and I'm ready to go any moment. I don't care. So
Okay.
let me tell you like this. Let me tell you like this. Both side, they have, see, there is one notice you have to know that these doubles, they do breed with humans, meaning that a female can breed with these doubles, and they get a humanoid. A humanoid is a mix of jinni and as a double and as a human, and
What
they
is that?
come with no
Are you saying the word
emotions.
devil? Like, are you saying Ginny devil?
Yeah, yeah, humanoid it's called. It looks like a human with full like this, and actually they are looking for human skins now. They are skinwalkers. They are looking for skin, human skin, to put it on their bodies, okay, to look like as human as possible. Now,
Okay.
the thing is, okay, it's a big game. It's a big game. It's like a science fiction film movie, but it's real, man. It's happening. It's
Mhm.
happening. Okay. Now they are doing black magic. Those devils, they need blood, human sacrification to
Hold
satisfy
on.
to sacrifice.
That's something we can talk about offline. I don't want to get this down too far down the rabbit hole. Okay, I tell
Okay.
you what, this has been
Yeah.
interesting. Where
Okay.
else, where can we get more information from you while not on the live so we can talk about some of these other things that you're talking about?
Brother, I am a slave of God. I am at your service. Any information you want to know, I know a lot. I know a lot
Okay.
by now. Okay?
I'm sure you have access to email. If you go into my link tree, which is in my bio, you can send me a message here if you want to. I'm assuming you're following me, right?
Yeah, do you want my telephone number? I can pass it to you on the private if you like.
Yeah, why don't you send me a message? You can send me whatever. Send me your email address. How about that? And we'll go from there.
Okay, but the thing, I don't know how to reach you, brother. Can you send me any message on the private?
Well, you can
Animals.
send me one. You can go to there's a way at the very homepage. It says message. You can just tap on that button and send me a message.
Right. I don't want to lose you because I have too many followers as well, but
Oh,
1 minute.
come on here again. If you can't catch me there, come on back. I do these things all the time. Okay. Let me see. Let me see if I can get them on here. Okay, I'm following you now. I just followed you. Okay. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, somebody kept telling me you're so patient. You're so patient. I like to listen to stuff. I have no idea about the accuracy of statements like this. The person sounds genuine, right? And I don't know much about the content being discussed, but you learn things in life that you just don't believe until you find out they're the way it is. So, you just kind of go one step at a time down a certain avenue, and then sometimes you got to turn around and go back. Sometimes you see the painting on the wall, Exactly. And, who's to say that his experience isn't his experience? I don't know. Maybe, one of the things that crosses my mind, people have these transcendental experiences a lot of times when they have something going on. A lot of times people do these like ayahuasca things where they go through this transcendental experience. It's through an external thing in their body. Sometimes your state of your condition causes you to experience something transcendental, and things like DMT get released in your body sometimes in greater quantities, and you experience these momentary, whatever they are. I don't know if it's about that. I don't know if that plays a role or if this is just straight up what's going on. Who knows? But it's interesting to me, and I'd like to hear more. If it goes more into depth into things that are a little more graphic, I'd like to learn about it, just not here, obviously, because of the way these things work, right? Unfortunately. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. I mean, it's imagine this. Imagine trying to share that with somebody and how they think you're off your rocker. Like, yeah, sure, man. Like you get a lot of that immediate dismissal, right? Who knows? I could have done that, but and some people were starting to say in the comments, enough. We've gone. I understand how people feel where you start to be. The sincerity seems doubtable, right? I get it, but who knows? Who are we to say, right? And maybe, there was also people that were reporting in Miami. They said they saw these 8 or 10 foot, sort of semi-translucent, like they could kind of come and go, like someone called it glitching, right? I don't know exactly what's going on there, but who knows, right? So there's enough things being talked about foreign. I think even the government has now admitted there's some sort of evidence that there's been some foreign something or other, either equipment or some form of life or something like that. So it makes sense, right? Think of it this way. It seems very unlikely that this one planet out of this massive universe is the only place where anything lives, right? What are the chances of that, right? Probably not high. So for what it's worth. Let me get back to a couple of basic things. We're getting near the conclusion, but thank you everybody for being here. We have about 170 people, but I want to reiterate my schedule in here. Now, this is not going to be forever, right? I'm doing 6 of these a week, which is a pretty hefty pace. Probably at the end of this month, early part of next month, I'm going to start switching things up a little bit. So enjoy this while I can. But every Monday, Wednesday, Friday is from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern time, just like tonight. And then every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I go from 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern. And sometimes, like on the Saturdays, I can go a little longer because I have the afternoon oil. So that during the work week, I have other stuff I got to do. In addition, if you came in late, or if you want to be able to listen again to what that guy said or whatever, TikTok keeps these things recorded. And as long as there's no violation, I can download them, which is why I was trying to be so careful, because I've had 2 different ones that I couldn't download, which was too bad because they had some good stuff. So they get recorded. I put them up onto my YouTube and onto my Rumble channels, which are both listed in my Linktree, which is a link in my bio that says Linktree, Chip Barnes. It's clickable, and you'll see all my stuff there, my Twitter, Instagram, and all that stuff. So check it out. There's also some groups that have been created for following what's going on, and one's called Palestine in Focus, I think. One's called Action for Change. We talk about these big system issues that are going to require work to get past the voting problems. There's that. And then there's one for the 13th protest. It says January 13th protest. So check it out. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then towards the bottom, I'm working basically for 15 cents every 2 hours or whatever they're paying on this. Is not much. So if you want to help out, anything is appreciated. I have a Patreon. I'm going to be doing something like this. If you don't know what Patreon is, it's a way you can make a donation to an independent content creator who you like, other people too. But $1 a month, $2 a month. I think that's set to $5 a month right now. If you can You can make a one-time, you can join for free. There's no rules. But anything you want to give is helpful because I'm basically working with no income right now. So I got to figure something out, right? But my goal eventually is to have enough followers, both here and elsewhere, that I can have enough, small donations from a broader group, and then I can just pay the bills basically. But there's other ways you can help if you want to make a Venmo or Cash App or, whatever. You'll see the choices on there. It covers almost everything. So there's that. So if you want to watch the uploads, though, this is the thing. I've got all of them going back to, I think, the middle of December, maybe the 18th of December. One of the things that's messed up, though, is that there's no way for me right now to reorganize. So whatever order I load them up, that's when they kind of appear. So sometimes there's a part one, part two, but they may not be right next to each other because I'm so new at figuring this stuff out. Eventually I'll get it straightened out, but right now it's a little bit chaotic. But if you look long enough, you'll find the episodes and stuff like that. It'll make sense. So yeah, I have a YouTube channel and I also have a Rumble channel. The links are in my bio. But if you want me to say it out loud, my YouTube channel, very simple. It's youtube.com/@ChipBarnes, no spaces. That's my YouTube. And my Rumble's another similar platform to YouTube. It's very similar. It's just owned by a different company. And it's a little newer. But it's just rumble.com/users/ChipBarnes. But you can automatically click through on those if you go to my link tree. It's a shortcut to all my stuff. And it says Rumble, YouTube. You just click a link and you're in. So that's the easier way to get there. So I also have a Twitter feed. If you don't know what, then I'm on Twitter before. It's a very popular app that's now owned by Elon Musk. It's also called X. And if you want to know the kind of information that I get from other people, all of the major people, most of them who I've ever followed or enjoyed their content is listed there for you to take a look at. So it's the very first message that's kind of stuck at the top. But that's my name, Chip Barnes. So if you go to my Twitter page, hopefully you follow me. I have a lot of good tweets and I really enjoy writing messages with putting videos, and it's just a fun way to communicate. And people have said to me, wow, you're a different person on Twitter. I seem pretty mild-mannered here, but I kind of let my hair down even though I don't have it. Okay, I've gone on most of my stuff. Lisa wants to come up and say something before we finish up tonight. Lisa Erica.
Hey Chip, what's up? How you
Hey,
doing?
good, thanks.
This is my second account, and I don't know if you wanted to make me mod. I'm not a mod on
Yeah,
this.
of course. This is your backup account? I'll follow it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I'll make you a mod. Sure.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about TikTok and just some things that are happening. A really positive thing that's happening is people from Gaza and the West Bank are calling in and coming into lives. And I think they all really appreciate like the support. They also, I feel like it's a time for them to vent. It's a time for them to talk about what's going on with them. And you can't really beat the word on the street, like you can't really beat the information that they're telling us. So I just want to encourage anyone who hasn't done it yet to follow people who are there, whether they're journalists or just people. There are Palestinians, Palestinian Americans on TikTok who can kind of ask them a few questions just to make sure that they're legit. Normally, they never ask for like money or TikTok coins, but some of them, you can give them TikTok coins and they can take them out and they can use them to buy, money or to buy food, or blankets or medication for their families.
Yeah.
A lot of them are all just like, in refugee camps, in tents. So I feel like that's a really positive thing that's happening. And then kind of on the flip side of that, and I know, Chip, that you've experienced this a lot. To me, it feels like that's true that TikTok does take 50%, but for me,
No, 70.
there, 70?
It takes
Wow,
70%.
okay. 70%, wow. So, and there are Palestinians that you can find, Palestinian Americans that you can find that have vetted people on lives. So if that's something that you're worried about and you do want to help out and make a donation, just donate wisely. I always say talk to a Palestinian who has someone that lives there that knows whether or not, you know,
Yeah.
because if it's aid, we don't know if it's going to get through at all. Um, and then also, I just kind of wanted to talk about the censorship a little bit. I
Sure.
know that you've experienced that. It's kind of my opinion, and I don't know what you think about this, that kind of once you get on their list, like once you get maybe some STRIKESs, that they question what you do, stuff starts to not work as well on a
Yeah.
second account. I don't know if you've noticed that, Chip, like
Well, it's
friending people or,
well, what's
you
happening
know,
lately is that my content's not being cycled through my For You content page or all my followers, as well as my lives are not being broadcast to nearly as many people.
gotcha. Yeah, that happens. So, and then you can be talking about, I don't know, in my experience, you can be talking about like nothing in particular at all. And you can just be, you know, people come in. So I don't
Yeah.
really have a whole lot to say. I just appreciate you so much, Chip, and appreciate the people on TikTok who get together and spread message and other social media. And I know that the people of Gaza also appreciate that. They talk about it a lot.
Good.
And I
Thank
talk to
you.
them every, you know, and they're just very appreciative of us.
It's good.
So go to,
Thanks, Lisa.
that's all I have to
Appreciate it.
say, Chip. All right. You have a good night. Good to see you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very well. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's always great to hear from people that regularly attend. I do want to share another content creator who I think, now, by the way, she mentioned following pro Palestine people that are from Gaza. So let me share with you a couple of those names that I'm aware of, and hopefully you can find them. I don't know their exact ID on TikTok, but if you Google it and you type in this name and then you say TikTok, it'll come up for you. You can probably click through. So one of the guys' names is Mansour. Mansour, Mansour, like Mansour. And then another one's name is what's her name again? Her female people know her name. Is it oh god, it's on the tip of my tongue. Um, she's got a one word Bisa. Is that her name? Bisa? Bisha. Bisha, I think is her name. Bisha. No, Bisan, that's right. Bisan. Bisan. Thank you. Bisan, Bisan. Sweet, sweet younger lady, very nice, very good at what she does. So you have Mansour and Bisan, and of course the big daddy is Motaz Azizi, Motaz on Instagram. So those are the three that I'm aware of. And there's other journalists there that just aren't, their names aren't as well known, and they're under a lot of, obviously a lot of danger given what the Israelis are doing. So anyway, bless those people for what they're doing. They're putting their lives at risk to try to get the information out to people like us in the world. So very dangerous thing to being a journalist inside of Gaza, obviously. So, but I did want to mention one other content creator, because when you finish with me right now, if you're not going to bed or whatever, and you want to watch another good quality live that I think does a great job, some of you probably know, I know Lisa does. His name is Eric with a K, and then Warsaw, like the city in Poland, Eric Warsaw. And Eric has a whole list of people, like down the screen here. He's got like a list of people down the side. I think it's 6 people at a time. And he runs a very orderly but very lively discussion on different issues. He's got all sorts of resources he brings up. He's been doing it forever, and he's very good at it. They normally have about 400 people, maybe 500. So he puts my lives to shame. I used to get that many, but I think they've been downsizing. But Eric does a good job. So, I'd rather have you spend some time with me, but if you're not going to spend time with me, I'd like to see you have it with Eric, because he's a good guy, and he's been helpful to me in a big way. So that's what I got for tonight. Any other questions before I go? Somebody wanted me to talk about what's happening tomorrow in terms of the hearing, the court case that's being brought. I don't know if it's going to be adjudicated in one particular day. Probably not. The Israelis have that guy Dershowitz going, Alan Dershowitz, to represent them. And of course, South Africa will have their lawyers, and et cetera. So it's going to be interesting to see. It'll probably be on things like C-SPAN, or maybe on some of the major networks. It'll probably be on Al Jazeera for sure. That's where I would probably try to watch it, and maybe other networks. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. The challenge is, as I mentioned earlier, everyone's excited about it. Like, there's probably, my guess, going to be some charges that are going to go through and become convictions, right? But the question is what to do then. like laws are only as good as you can enforce them, right? And so if there is a conviction, let's say against Netanyahu, for example, or whomever else on his team that's verbalized what's going on there, it's called intent. Let's say they get charged and convicted of that. They have to travel to a country where they can be arrested because it's a signatory to the International Court of Justice Treaty. So that the likelihood of that happening is obviously quite low, unfortunately. So, we'd like to see people held accountable. Maybe they will be eventually. We never know. Like, of course, when Germany was doing its thing in World War II, no one thought they were going to be held to account. And of course, that changed, right? So we'll see. But yeah, a lot of leaders from Israel have stated intent publicly to do unalive everybody. And, that's obviously intent, right? So can't take that back once you make public statements like that. So maybe that's a good thing, or at least there'll be at least a stamp of what they've done. It's better than nothing. And then hopefully that's something that travels with them their whole life. No, there can't be a forced ceasefire right now. The U.S. has a veto at the UN. It's one of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, each of whom has a veto. And unfortunately, the U.S. has been using it to provide political cover and to not force a ceasefire. And they vetoed things 3 times now. So I don't see that changing. They've ramped up the rhetoric publicly, but that doesn't mean anything, right? So that's what I got for tonight. No other questions. I want to say thank you to everybody for being here. I want to thank M and Maz for moderating. I know they both stay up late to do this, so I really appreciate them. And I really appreciate you folks for following me. If you're going to come back in the future, the best thing you can do is invite some friends, because they're limiting who I get sent to right now. So if you want to have a more lively discussion with more questions, we can do it that way. But thanks for being here tonight. I will be on again tomorrow at 12 noon, at least if I'm alive by then, and I'll see you then, okay? Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.